Assalomu alaykum barchaga.
Assalomu alaykum.
Boshlashdan oldin bir ob-havo haqida gaplashishni boshladik. Shu nimada bir savol kelib qoldi menga. Iqlim madaniyatlarga ta'sir ko'rsatadimi? Nima deb o'ylaysiz?
Hurmatli talabalar, uzr Zamir opa, yoqib qo'yamiz video va mikrofonlarni. Nimagadir o'qituvchi sizlarga qarab gapirsa, sal nimaroq bo'ladi, iltimos.
Madina, I'm sorry, but I cannot now switch on my camera because I'm not at the right place.
Okay.
I have something in the oven, so I'm just observing.
I see.
So,
okay.
yeah,
Students, please switch your camera on.
So then I will switch on when I'm just finished.
Good evening, teacher.
Hi.
I am Ergasheva Madina and I have some problem in my health. I have flu and also have some problem in my throat, and I have some, my nose running, so it's uncomfortable for me. So that can I switch off my video?
Okay. Yeah. As long as you.
But I'm here in this lesson. I will listen you also.
Okay.
Okay, Nadrapa, hello again.
Hi.
I'm Zamira. Can I start just answering
Yes, please.
the question?
Yes.
So I think weather greatly affects the way we live, the way we just eat, and of course the way we dress. So, for example, people who live in cold countries, in cold climate, they just value things differently from the people who live in hot areas. For example, as I just grew up in a village, we really value this wood. I cannot remember this otten.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we value such kind of things. Even we just gather all these twigs from trees.
Right.
This is just precious to us, and we just prepare some food for the winter in order to just live through this cold period. So and we also value the water. Water can be somehow problematic during this cold periods. They just freeze sometimes, and it becomes difficult for people to find just running water. Because I'm just from village, but I'm just speaking from my own experience. So yes,
that's great. Yeah, that's great, Zamira. Thank you for mentioning, that we, like last time we talked about, when we mean culture, it's not kind of, it doesn't relate only to kind of country's culture, right? Nation's culture, right? But it can be like subcultures, right? Within villages, the culture of that village, right? The culture of villagers, as opposed to city dwellers, for example, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the things that we value is different. That's absolutely.
For example, in Tashkent, when they have some repairmen in their flats, they just throw away all the wood, this old wood. So I just want that to take that wood, if I was able to and send to village all
the village, right? Yes.
They need it actually. Some people just badly need this wood in order to just live through this cold period.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that shifts the thinking so much, right? Yeah, so it's true. Yeah, we look at things differently, right? Depending on what culture you come from. As we said, like last time we talked about the kind of what we can say. I think I didn't mention this term, but we usually say like kind of big culture, like what we usually understand, like countries, nationalities, culture, and also small culture. They say like the culture with small c. So small culture, like it's last time we were digging deeper, and it's just discovering that it is culture of a specific individual, right? So each individual is a specific culture, right? But we're talking culture is specific characteristics like of a specific group of people, right? So group can be village, can be region, can be religion, can be age difference, right? So profession, gender, male or female, right? So they may be different kinds of groups, and we may have different features, right? That kind of unites us. And I think that when we look at culture, big as a only big culture, you know, like they and us, right? So that kind of separates us, you know, like American culture, Canadian culture, Uzbek culture, Turkish culture, right? So that separates us, right? So like it's we and then they, right? But when we talk about like kind of groups cultures, it unites us, right? So like saying female culture, right? So we have all ladies today, right? So we still have like ladies have certain things in common with all the women in the world, right? So, or when we talk like mother's culture, right? So mother's culture, they have something that, you know, that unites us, you know. Talking about this, I remember when I first came to Canada, and one of the first thing I think I did, so I think it's any country I go to is going to a conference, English teachers conference. Like during the break, I came into the room, so we were waiting for the plenary session, and the room, it was a big hall, but it was empty, and there was only one lady. And then we started kind of talking, and we discovered that we are that both of us have twin boys, but her boys are kind of, they are adults already. And so we were so happy, like kind of we discussed about joy and difficulty of raising twin boys, you know, and we're like, oh, like, and as if it was, you know, like, yeah, there were nobody, although she's much older than me. She's white Canadian, so I'm a new immigrant at time. So it was a kind of huge gap, if you think in that culture, but like kind of the thing that united us was that we were both mothers of twins, right? And we had the same feelings, you know, the same kind of things that, and then everybody started coming in. She said, okay, it was nice talking to you. And like, she gave me her email, and then like, she went to the podium, and it turned out that she's the advisor to the Prime Minister of Canada. So she was the plenary speaker. So it was, yeah, so kind of wow. I said like, yeah, but you know, the things that united us was that we were both moms, right? So yeah, there are things like, we were totally different, right? But there are things that can unite us, right? So this is when we talk about different subcultures, right? Mm-hmm.
By the way, here in this group, we have mother raising twins, I suppose, right? Kulruch?
Mm-hmm.
Twin girls. Yes.
So yeah, we can talk all about, I always say double joy, double trouble. Yeah. Right. So as for the weather, I think, yeah, this is something, there are no right or wrong answers, but all the things that you mentioned are really true, and you can kind of think about it, right? From my observation, like, yeah, you mentioned the words, even like you said, like related to the lifestyle, right? So yeah, because of the weather, right? Then you know, apparently the colder weather, you learn more words related to warm clothes. Right here, for example, in Canada, really, I didn't know that before. Like we, like, you know, like you have to have snow pants, you know, which I've never heard of this before coming here. for like jackets, they have different names, you know, like raincoat, windbreaker, like winter coat, you know, there are different kind of categories for that. Then they have to have like neck warmer, you know, that's also kind of a new word for me. You know, we say scarf, right? But now they have a neck warmer, you know, like, and many, many other words like that. Or I know that depending whether there is some languages have words, for example, they say in Finnish language, they have, I don't know, about 20 words to describe snow because it snows so much, right? So they have different names for different types of snow, right? Whereas, of course, in countries where it doesn't snow, you don't have those words, right? In Uzbek, I think we also have a few kind of types of snow, right? We kind of use words to describe snow, right? But still, they say like in Finnish, it's much more, and they have like each word for, yeah, different, like, for example, you know, yesterday's snow, they have a word for that, yesterday's snow, or like fresh snow, you know, like we have like wet snow, right? So like, yeah, so there are languages. Another thing that's purely observation, I think it's not statistically proven, but I think like people living in hot climates tend to be more emotional, more open, kind of, they're more sociable, I think. Whereas people living in colder countries tend to be kind of more reserved, kind of less sociable, I would say. Yeah, it's interesting. So as for Canada, so it's interesting, like first thing, like I remember my husband mentioned it, and I still think it's so true. Like he said, in Canada, everything is like hot, either hot or cold. And it is true, like in Toronto, it's very hot in summer. It's unbelievably hot, like almost like in Uzbekistan. Whereas in winter, it's really cold. It can go up to minus 20, 40, you know, minus 40. And it's like either or. Lots of things here like that, you know, it's either cold, either hot, you know, there's no anything in between, right? So whereas in Uzbekistan, I think lots of things are in between. I think like you can never, people never say like either cold or hot. So it's, yeah, I mean, in everything, even laws, you know, laws like that as well, you know, the either or, you don't like black and white, you don't have something, you know, gray areas. Okay, yeah, that was kind of, I think, good revision of what we talked last time. And there were a few things that I didn't mention. So when we talked about, yeah, groups, right? So you remember we had these circles, right? Different circles that we have, that we belong to. There might be other things as well, or it was, I think, in one of these, in the circles, but what do you think is the answer to this question?
Someone's income, occupation, level of education. Income, occupation.
So we remember we talked about level of education is also kind of culture, right? So we say like the culture of educated people or the culture of uneducated people, right? So there are, it's not being discriminatory, but it is true, right? So there are features that unite people or separate people from others. Occupation, we talked about, like, for example, culture of teachers, right? Culture of English language teachers, culture of doctors, right? So there might be a bit differences. So culture of salespeople, right? Or income, right? So like rich or poor or middle class.
I think it's B actually. Yeah.
Yes, all this is called, yeah, that's true. It's called socioeconomic status, right? So that's also part of a culture, right? Yeah, socioeconomics, yeah, that's true. Another thing that culture is also about, what do you think is hereditary physical characteristic? So which of these words refer to physical characteristics?
Race.
Features.
Race, right? Race, right? So race. Although this is also very difficult kind of, yeah, we have distinct race like Afro-American race, right? Black people. And we have like they call Caucasian, so white, so Caucasian. Race, you know, yeah, it's interesting. Like if you remember, like in schools, they used to teach us 3 types of race, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you studied in that, so like Mongoloid, Europoid, and Negroid, right?
Negroid. Yeah.
This classification is not universal in the world. People do not talk about people like that. Well, people actually don't try not to talk about race at all, but usually when they give a kind of questionnaires, there are lots of classifications, you know, and it's up to you which one you think you belong to. And being Uzbek, I think that's so difficult. Which race do we belong to? So we're definitely not kind of Caucasian. We're not kind of Caucasian, right? Although we are, Uzbekistan is in Eurasia, right? So because we are not Asians. So because when people say Asians, usually they refer to Indian or Chinese, you know, the South Asian nationalities. Or like people in Middle East, you know, like Middle Eastern, so like Arabs, you know, yeah, the whole Arab world and Iranians, you know. It's really difficult. Yeah, I really don't know the answer. Which kind of race do we belong to? And there is sometimes they give the Eastern European race. They say that, and Uzbekistan belongs to Eastern Europe. Although like we're kind of, yeah, Central Asia, it's kind of, you know, not everyone knows kind of what is Central Asia. Yeah, so they never have that Central Asian race. And yeah, we are not kind of, yeah, that's interesting. So it's up to you actually which one you think you belong to. There is no, again, right or wrong answers. When they do that, the censors, right, so they say it's up to you, it's how you feel, right? The same about culture, right? So like therefore, like everyone's culture might be different, right? You might think that you are this type of culture and others might think no, might not. So it's up to them. So but definitely race is also part of the culture. And poverty and wealth may be thought of as a culture that needs to be taken into consideration. So what do you think? True, false?
I think yes, true.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah,
so yes,
yeah,
that's also
yeah.
kind of this,
It affects the way people live. Yes.
not only live but think as well, right?
Think as
So
well,
yes,
yeah.
act, behave. That's true.
And that they major barriers.
Okay, we'll talk about that. So do you remember the homework that I gave you? Please raise your hands if you could watch the TED Talks. Yes?
Honestly, I just forgot watching them, but I watched it, the single story, yeah?
Yeah,
About stereotyping. Danger of
the danger of single story, yes. Anyone else? So I see Guli Musaiva, thank you. Mohigul, thank you. Zamira watched one. Who else? No?
I also watched both of them.
Adina, great, thank
Yes.
you. Gulruh? 1, 2? Okay. Vasila? Yes? Did you watch it? Yes? Yes, good. So yeah, then I'll put you in a small, well, we are very small. Do you want me to put you in small groups to discuss, or do you want, no, let's okay, discuss together. I think they're not everyone. We have very few people, right? So let's discuss that together. Yeah, there were two TED Talks, right? By the way, if your English is not that advanced, you can turn on the subtitles either in English or even in Uzbek. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Right, so you can turn on the subtitles, so you know, even if you want to rewatch it. So that's a kind of an open discussion. So what do you think of these two TED Talks? Did you like them? Why not? What you were thinking?
May I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would start about the Chimamanda. Her name was Chimamanda stories. I really like short story because it's the reality of our modern life. Not only reality, but also catastrophe, I would say. Because in short speech, she focused on the problem of humanity. She speaks about the negative side of single story, and by giving example, personal example, she tries to tell the world that discrimination, stereotypes, including religion and different opinions, are mostly subjective. And because of this, people cannot understand each other, I say. So I totally, absolutely agree with her, because the thing which has been shown us by government and mass media is not be just reality, because coin has the two sides, and without knowing other sides, we shouldn't decide, we shouldn't discuss others.
Right.
Answering the question which I liked more, I would say both of all, because they have a different interpretation style. For example, Pellegrino has a strong humor sense, and he tries to open up kind of intercultural understanding other cultures. And what I'm going to tell you is that without learning other culture and tradition and respecting them, we cannot be human.
Yeah, great. Thank
Ask me something, please. I'm
yes,
just
please.
confusing.
Ask me. No, great. Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, you can jump in. Like, we'll. I want to hear from
yes.
different people. Yeah, you can jump in anytime as well. Yeah. Anyone else wants to share your thoughts, your reflection?
Of course.
Yes.
The woman's talk was a great eye-opener for me. It was very useful speech because we all have, as we see, we all have a single story about a part, place, or people, and but after watching this video, I changed, for example, my mind about the place and about its people, of course. So it was very useful for me. And the second video was about the perception, about the curiosity and the equality of people, and accepted and familiar habits of other countries' habits. And he talked about that inside him
inside him live three cultures, and he merged them into all three cultures into one new culture. And he told that before, if we get, for example, into a new culture, of course, at first we should look at the culture, then we should get to into this culture. And for me, both, for example, I don't choose that one video, the first or the second video is better for me. For example, both are unique for me, and both were useful. And of course, if we want, for example, if we want to learn other countries, for example, language, habits, customs, their way of things, we should look at it. We should get into it.
Yes. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's kind of the thing that unites them is, I think you shouldn't look at kind of jump onto conclusions immediately about other people, right? By just looking at them, right? Kind of like saying like everybody's like that, first of all, right? So, and yeah, you shouldn't be kind of what we say, suspend your disbelief about others, right? So yeah.
Okay, I would
Yes,
also
Zamira.
like to. Okay, so I actually watched this Chimamanda's videos 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. That I really liked it, and I watched it several times. So this is really dangerous stereotyping. Yes, it's about stereotyping. This kind of problem exists globally and locally also. For example, if we take Uzbekistan, stereotyping exists between even regions. For example, between Fergana and between Surkhandarya, yeah? And we can also witness different kind of conflicts between those people. It's very dangerous, really. For example, in my life, I just met or lived together in neighborhood with different people from regions. Different people exist in every culture, bad or good. So this is really just not appropriate, just stereotype or give them some names or characteristics. So globally, we can witness them when all other world just see the Muslims as terrorists. Yeah. So today's just events, incidents are also just prove this opinion. For example, just happening in Paris, yeah, in France, and in other places also. So it's very influential speech. So so I liked it very much. So
great, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else wants to share?
May I continue?
Yes, please, Guli.
Okay. By the way, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be black and white. It's okay to be Muslim and Buddhist, and nevertheless, kind of things. Every people have to right to live in a normal life, and kind of barriers shouldn't be in our society, I would say. And Belgrano's perception I liked more, that and want to continue. Culture is the planet, and we have to take best of all. And in order to be the ideal, we have to take kindness and respecting family and older people like Uzbeks, and respecting history and tradition like Turkish people, and respecting human rights like American. That's all.
Well, yes, but I don't think Americans are the kind of the the standard of, right, because yeah, of course, on a kind of the legal level, right, yeah, but as you know, there are problems as well. And if you just the recent news about the movement Black Lives Matter, if you remember, there was a Black person killed by a police officer recently, right? So, and there are still lots of cases like that, and they are still going on, right? So this movement, because there are so many things that they had to suffer, yeah. It seems like, you know, in other countries, like everybody, they respect everyone, but in reality, it's not ideal as it is anywhere.
And it's also a danger of the single story for us.
Right, exactly, right? So yeah, that is the single story, right? So the America is saying, oh, we're a democratic country, right? So they are kind of saying that to the whole world, and as if they are trying, but it doesn't mean that everything is kind of perfect there, right? Yes, no, there are lots of discrimination as well. And unbelievably is like, you know, women discrimination is still in US as well, you know, although like this seems, oh no, you know, it's only in Uzbekistan, for example, right? So no, it's still in America as well. There's a research shows that women get paid much less than men, even in the US, you know. There are so many, yes, sorry, here in Canada, so it's a very diverse country, and it's kind of, the government always stresses out on the diversity, but there are huge problems with the native indigenous people, you know, who were the owners of this land before Europeans came. So what we call like First Nations, so the indigenous people, they still, there are lots of them, and there were lots of problems with them. So because they don't recognize their rights. There are lots of kind of things that are doing towards them, but still, like, and there are lots of, as you said, stereotyping, you know, that they are not educated, that they are, you know, they like drink alcohol, you know, they're alcohol addict or drug addicts, you know, there are things like that. So there are so many things like that happening in any country. That's true. So that's kind of, yeah, that you're right. So it's not, you know, if you remember that, yeah, this lady, oh my God, I forgot her name. Yeah. So you were saying, when she was saying also, like, you know, she shared with your kind of somebody told her, you know, oh, I feel sorry that, you know, men in Nigeria are abusive, right? So like that.
Pakistan.
Oh, Pakistan was it? And then she said like, oh yes, I read a novel, and you know, like I think now like all young men are what was it, suiciders or whatever, right? So like, yeah, so it's a danger of one story, right? So like everybody like you think like, and then everybody's like that, right? Everybody thinks like maybe like America is the paradise on earth, right? Or some other country, right? Yeah, it can be positive, can be negative, right? Yes. And I think the danger especially is that, yeah, it kind of lingers on with adults as well, but especially young children, right? So when they get exposed to that, they think that, oh, that everybody should be like that, right? So kind of, or everybody's like that. So I think that's the danger. And the danger is that which books they're reading, which movies they're watching, right? So yeah, and they think like, oh, I have to be like them as well, right? So if I
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is a recent incident that happened at school near us. So when all these COVID cases started, yes, last year in summer, in this spring, the classmates just hit the boy, a Korean boy in their class, you know? This is also
Korean, not Chinese, right? Not even Chinese. Well, it started the whole world, if you remember. The people started blaming Chinese people, and they started, you know, avoiding. It happened in all the countries, you know. They were like in the streets, you know, people, when they see Chinese, for example, they would throw something to them. They would blame them, like what to say. Even Donald Trump, the president of the United States, he was saying bad things about Chinese people, and he was saying, "Oh, this is Chinese disease," you know, like that. So yeah, so it's even, you
The
know,
same thing even happened in our university. Zamira, do you know?
Yeah, of course.
Among students, we have foreign students, and
yeah, that's what I think she said. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's also a kind of stereotyping, yes, a new one, just related to COVID.
Right. Yes.
So,
Overgeneralization. Yes. Jumping to conclusions. Right. Yes. Or like, yes, saying, oh, you are like eating bad soup. Right. So seeing this eating bad, so therefore it came out. Right. Yeah. I know. It's all stereotypes and yeah, things like that. So yeah, you've been mentioning these words several times, stereotypes. So let's look at that and other things. So stereotypes, so this is the question, so I intended. So that means behavior of assuming of that some person or group of people possess certain characteristics, right? So simply because he or she is a member of a particular group, right? And it is sometimes maybe mistaken, right? So, but stereotypes can be positive as well, right? Not only negative, right? So yeah, you were talking about, yeah, we say like, or and there are some positive as well, right? So this is the kind of poem saying heaven is where the French are the chefs, because French are considered kind of, they're famous for their cooking, baking skills, right? And the British are the police, you know, people who follow the rules, right? The German are the mechanics because they're good at building stuff, right? Like Mercedes. And the Swiss make everything run on time, so because they kind of make a nice watch, right? So this is kind of a humorous, but yeah, it's there are some positive stereotypes as well, right? Not only we kind of have. So yeah, what about you? What do you think, like, yeah, about your culture? And when I say culture, it's up to you which one you choose, whether you choose like you yourself as an Uzbek, or you yourself as a Muslim, you yourself as a person from Tashkent or from region, right? So it's up to you. Maybe you as a teacher, you as a student, for example, right? So are there any stereotypes you think people have about your culture or subculture? For example, like people wear, like I'm wearing hijab, right? Many people think like once you wear hijab is like kind of the kind of the life has ended for you, kind of you have to stay at home, and you know, yeah, many people like when people wear hijab, like they uneducated, you know, like to devote their whole time only to home, and you know, maybe like that, right? So there's the stereotype. Yeah, you said like the terrorist, yes, maybe for others, right? For people, but even like in Uzbekistan, I think we have that kind of stereotypes as well, right? So like if a person in hijab, that's probably, most probably she's not educated, right? And her husband forced her to wear hijab, for example, right? So yeah, that stereotypes also exist. Or yeah, have you ever kind of encountered any stereotypes about your culture?
In our culture, people think that girls, it isn't necessary to study. Not all people, some, I would say. Girls shouldn't study, and it isn't essential, they think. For example, in an old
Is it women? Is it about women, girls?
Girls.
Girls, right? Yes, okay. But it's not stereotyping. I think it's belief, right? It's more like, but if you say like, what about girls? You know, Uzbek girls, what stereotypes usually they have? Or Uzbeks, what do you think? Or I don't know, students, right? We usually say student culture, right? So like student, they always come late, right? Or they don't keep deadlines, for example, right? So they study for the exams last minute, right?
They are procrastinators.
Yes. Like that, right? So, or women, like stereotypes about women. So women are that like they talk a lot, right? So we say like women, like they usually tend to talk a lot, right? Much more than men, right?
Usually they say that women are bad drivers.
Bad drivers, that's great. Yes, that's a good example. Yes, women are bad drivers. Yeah, that's a good stereotype, right?
They even say that woman driving woman is like a monkey with a bomb.
Right.
Something like this.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
So in our country, I think Uzbek people, they do not have punctuality. For example, when they are invited to any kind of wedding, yes, or birthday party, they tend to be late for this kind of events. So
Okay.
I think it never changes because they have a tendency to be late for anywhere. So I think
Okay. Yes. Okay.
they are not punctual.
They are not
at
punctual.
all.
Okay.
And there is also one stereotyping about Uzbek people.
Yes.
So I don't want to pronounce this word, but they say its meaning is that we don't know our rights and we don't just stand up for our rights like this. You know this phrase, yes? In Uzbek language. So I just don't want to just say it, just offend people here.
You can type it in the chat box.
Okay, I think, yeah, I think I get it. Yeah.
Okay, they think that Uzbek people are like that. Yeah.
Right. Or like, yeah, when you think of, for example, Uzbeks are living in Russia, for example, right? By looking at them, like Russian people assume, I guess, so like, oh, all Uzbeks are uneducated, right? So like, they don't know like even Russian language very well, right? For example, right? So like, or all of them like that, right? So kind of, yeah, they're looking at them like when they kind of have this one story, right? Yeah.
Or just we Uzbek people say that Russian people are all drunk. Yes, always.
Right. Yeah. Alcohol. Yeah. Alcohol addicts. Yes. Yeah.
But there are some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are some people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's good. Yes. Now I got your point. Yes. I thought, I was thinking like, yeah, you kind of shift this. Yeah. What stereotypes do we have about other people, right? So I will not ask now, but think about it. I think that's a great question. So what stereotypes do you think you have about other people, right? Yeah, about other nationalities, other people from other, I don't know, gender, about men, female, right? About other age groups, right? About young or old people. Or from different regions, right? Or from poor or rich, you know, or about teachers, about government officials, right? Yeah, it can be different cultures, right? What stereotypes do you think you have? And is it always bad? So we were talking about all negative, right? So the stereotypes are always bad. Do you think it's always bad? Are there any advantages of stereotypes? No? No? Okay. Well, when we say stereotypes, actually, it's not that bad. Actually, it has some advantages. one advantage is that it enables us to act in these situations, you know, based on what we know about these type of people, right?
Yeah.
It helps us. It helps us, you know, for example, if you know that, I don't know, women tend to talk more, right? That kind of, you know, say, okay, she's woman, okay, right? So kind of, right? You kind of make some, you understand them better. Or like, you know, something about Turkish culture or like say Japanese culture, right? So that helps you kind of understand them better, right? So stereotypes not always bad, right? They may help you understand them, right? And you might adjust your style of communication with them while you encounter this or that particular group of people.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So, but the problem is when you ignore the differences. So when people overgeneralize, when they think that if he's like, for example, China, so then he's also has all those stereotypes that we have, right? That we have in our mind, right? So that is the problem when people think like make generalizations, overgeneralizations, that it's it is specific to everyone, okay? But as I said, like by itself, stereotypes, like that is not that bad. But there is a definitely another term that we say that is negative is called prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between stereotype and prejudice?
Another, sorry, but what is the Uzbek version for prejudice?
That's interesting. Well, there is no word. That's actually the kind of the word that like a culture specific word, I would say. But there is no word. That's the thing. If you remember, there is a novel, Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
And if you remember, it was translated, I think, is just ishq wa ghurur. So they just put it like ishq. Pardon me?
Andisha wa ghurur.
Andisha. Well, although andisha is not prejudice at all, it's opposite actually, because andisha is a positive word in Uzbek. Prejudice is negative word.
But it translates like andisha wa ghurur.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I thought it is ishq wa ghurur. Okay, yeah, that's good, andisha wa ghurur. Yes, because I know like in Turkish they translated ashq wa ghurur. So yeah. Sorry. That. Prejudice. It is having attitude towards negative attitude towards other cultures, right? Based on the stereotypes, right? So it's mainly about like stereotypes, right? It's just only knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So like they are like that, these are that, right? So we kind of have a knowledge, right? But when you have an attitude, incorrect attitude, that's prejudice. So you know, people have certain, prejudice views towards certain race or gender, right? What we were talking about. And when we kind of act on them, you know, not only we know, but we act on them. We behave based on those mistaken beliefs, mistaken stereotypes, right? And if you remember that novel, if you've read that, the prejudice was against class differences. Mr. Darcy was from upper class, rich.
Then Elizabeth.
And Elizabeth was from kind of impoverished, right? Almost like middle class, right? So, and that the class differences, the prejudice was that, you know, she didn't have any inheritance, right? So the prejudice is that like rich guy would never marry someone like her, right? So this class differences, right? This prejudice. Prejudice, we all have this, you know, these isms, right? So racism, right? When, as I said, it's having that attitude, acting on those stereotypes, right? It's stereotypical beliefs, I would say. So racism, right? So when negative treatment and stereotyping of races other than the dominant one in the society in question, right? And I mentioned about this recent news about Black Lives Matter, right? So, and how it all started, right? Well, actually, it's been for centuries and centuries, right? Because they were enslaved, right? So they brought them from African countries and they sold them as slaves here in North America, right? Or another example is Jews, right? So in Nazi Germany, right? So they prosecuted all Jews, all this Holocaust, right?
Yeah.
So if you watched movies like Schindler's List or The Pianist, if you haven't, just watch it. It's a great kind of the great movies. Yeah, so about how they are prosecuting Jews, right? Or bullying Asian by white students, for example, right? Or bullying other kind of nationalities, right? Have you ever? What about you? Do you know any examples of racism?
Yeah, actually watched on TV.
Yes.
So you cannot witness such kind of racism in Uzbekistan, actually. Yeah. So we watched on TVs, on news about this Black people in the US, or others about religion, just Myanmar, Muslims in Myanmar. Yes, like it's, I think, not racism. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's discriminating against religion, right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Racism, yeah, about more about nationalism, maybe even, right? Yeah. Okay. Sexism, yeah, it's negative treatment of females by males. We usually in a particular society, negative stereotypes of men as aggressive, right? Male views that a woman place is in the home, right? So glass ceiling for women trying to reach the top positions in business. Like glass ceiling means like, you know, like, can you imagine that there will be women president in Uzbekistan?
I can.
Yeah, well, what do you think other people think about it, right? So like probably if you make a poll, then majority of people will say, oh no, like women cannot be presidents, right? So or you know, like, you know, or like when a woman is a boss, so people kind of treat her a bit differently.
Feminism is also a type of prejudice, or no?
Feminism is a positive word, kind of, right? So feminism is trying to fight for equal rights, right, for men and women. So this is kind of a movement, right? But they are fighting against sexism, right? So the sexism is a prejudice, you know, but feminism is a movement, right? So kind of, yeah. The problem
Even,
is sexism.
in Uzbek families, they don't allow, some people don't allow their daughters to just continue their education. This is also
Exactly.
sexism.
Exactly, right? So like, yeah, like we always say, even like, oh, she's a girl, she doesn't need, kind of, right? So like, even if she doesn't kind of go to to university, yeah, it's like she'll get anyway, because she'll get married and then, right? So yeah, whereas like, man, oh, you're a man, you have to study, right? You have to earn money, right? So yeah, this is sexism, right?
And also
Although
Indian people, yes.
Yes. So what is it about
Indian people have this kind of like categories, yeah, sexism. So girls in India, they are supposed to get married, yes, at the age of 13 or 12. I mean, earlier.
Well, I think it depends. Maybe it's certain subcultures, certain region, maybe certain villages, I guess. But most Indians that I saw, not like that. Yeah, that's also kind of a danger of one story, right? Might be in some villages, I guess, nowadays, but in general, I don't think that's the case nowadays. India is quite another. In India, I think there is another problem with caste or class discrimination. I think that's a really big issue. I think it is still now, like, you know, the castes. So they have castes in India, you know, or class, you know, upper class, middle class, you know, yeah. So then they would never marry people from, you know, different class, for example. Right. So same like I observed in Egypt, you know, I used to live there. They also have these kind of castes. And like I remember, like my husband in their company, they made one of the employees as a kind of a supervisor, like line manager, and then like another employee came and they said, oh, you know, like his caste is lower than me, so he cannot be my supervisor. So, you know, even in workplaces, so they bring that, you know, like person from kind of lower class can never be supervisor, for example, or boss, you know, let alone marrying, right? So, or we have in Uzbekistan, you know, I think, I don't know whether it's still, but some years ago it was kind of very boom of that, like hojalar, right? So that they have to marry hojas, right? So although nobody knows for sure where this comes from, right? So what does it mean to be a hoja, right? So, but yeah, people were like consider themselves hojas. So like, oh, we're hojalam. So that means they have to marry only hoja, right? Any other ageism, right? So viewing older people are less able, less competent, and suffer memory loss, right? So employers may not, you know, hire a person who is in 50s or 60s, right?
Yes.
Or
it exists in Uzbekistan, actually.
Exactly, and not only Uzbekistan, and yeah, that's therefore I'm saying this is not only Uzbekistan. Yes, it exists in many countries. Yes. Or hiring two young people as well in Uzbekistan. I think that like girls, right? Saying, oh, like she'll get pregnant and she'll go to maternity leave, right? So, yeah.
Yes. When they announce these job opportunities, they will just put their age limit.
Right.
Always.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that therefore, you know, that's one thing, people have that, right? Another thing is that the government should fight for this, right? And it should be in the laws, right? So that they have to make sure that there are equal opportunities for everyone. And so ageism, like for example, here in Canada, it's prohibited. Therefore, in job interviews, for example, employers cannot ask the person's age they cannot discriminate them. They cannot say that, oh, she's old or he's old, therefore I will not hire him, right? So of course, you know, they might justify it with different words, right? But, you know, legally they cannot do that. And like in resumes, for example, therefore, like I see like resumes from different countries. In some countries, and in Uzbekistan as well, this, you know, because you have a photo, right? And then people write the date of birth, right? So like then marital status, right? But this is also discrimination, right? Employers might have prejudice, right? So by looking at your picture, right? So like they make some assumptions about you, right? Like whether they want male or female, for example, right? That's also exists. Sexism, right? In job places. Oh, I want to, like in Canada, it's prohibited. You cannot do that. Therefore, there are no photos so that people don't know which sex you are, for example. And people usually cannot guess from your last name or first name because there are so many names, you know, nobody knows whether this is boy or girl, right? For example, Chinese names, you know, or like some names that you don't know, right? So people do not have that discrimination, sexism or ageism, you know, that, you know, they don't, when they're hiring a person, when they look at their resume, so that they don't make assumptions, oh, this is old or this is young, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that we have that, oh, she's too young, right, to be, for example. I think, yeah, that was one of the things, like, was the glass ceiling was broken when they started assigning ministers, right? So in Uzbekistan, there was a minister who was really young. I don't know how old was he, 25, right? Alisher, yes, alive, right? He was 25 or so, right? So like that was wow, right? So yeah, why not, right? Why like ministers should be only in their 40s or 50s, right? There is another thing is tokenism. You know, sometimes, you know, governments, when they try to kind of show that they are offering equal opportunities, they it's positive action, but it may not be enough. You know, they, in many cases, they do it, you know, just for the check mark, right? Saying, you know, we have that like in every, I don't know whether they removed that law or not, like there should be one deputy minister and woman in every ministry, for example, or in every like hakims, right, mayors, they should be at least one female deputy mayor. You know, making this kind of efforts by the government when they do it like just for the check mark, you know, that. And there are nowadays, I heard there are laws, they are discussing the bill about, there was a draft, I hope they don't pass it in the US, saying like the movies that will be nominated for Oscar, for the Academy Awards, they should have like certain percentage, I think, I don't remember, like 30% should be Black people, both in the actors and the cast and the staff as well. You know, like 30% should be, you know, LGBTQ community, you know, and, you know, 7% should be Asian, you know, they were kind of, this is also artificially offering kind of opportunities for different groups. Homophobism, so that's what I mentioned about LGBTQ, prejudice shown towards homosexuals by heterosexual people, right? And there were some news, you know, one, it was in the US, so one bakery, they refused to sell cake to a gay couple for their wedding. Yeah, there are stories like that even in the US and everywhere. yeah, the things that we didn't discuss is ableism, you know, looking at disabled people as they are kind of less able, right? Nationalism, right? Favoring some nations over others, right? Yeah, transphobia, homophobia we talked about. So it's transphobia, it's also more like homophobia. Religious discrimination, right? We talked about caste and class discrimination. Yeah.
Can we also nepotism?
Nepotism, nepotism, but it's not prejudice, right?
It's not.
Well, maybe I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't think it's cultural, right? It's kind of more, yeah. Of course, it's a problem, yeah, but it's not discriminating people, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe, right? Discriminating, yeah, against whether you belong to the family or not, right? Maybe. Another problem, these cultural barriers are called ethnocentrism. You know, judging another culture solely by the values and standards of one's own culture. The belief of superiority of one's personal ethnic group, race, or religion, right? So thinking that we are kind of higher, superior than others, right? Hitler, right? So this Nazism, they were like, oh, we are like Germans, Nazi, we are superior nation, right? You remember this
Hitler's idea,
right? So this word like coming, we are from the pure nation, so we should be the superior. Or there are some beliefs in Jews who think that their religion is superior to other religions. Some people blame Tashkent people that they are ethnocentric, thinking they are superior than people from the regions, right? So things like that. So when they think they are kind of above others, they are higher than others, right? Have you ever encountered, or do you know any examples of ethnocentrism? Okay, so another problem that everyone should feel the same way. It's not, well, it is close. They are all very kind of close things, right? So we're talking about different barriers, different beliefs and attitudes. But there is also kind of thing that people think that everybody should be the same as I am, right? So imposition, this is called cultural imposition. You know, when people try to impose their beliefs on others. And I think that's kind of very strong in Uzbekistan, I think. You know, when people try to define what is, for example, manaviyat, right? Who is Uzbek girl, for example? Who is Uzbek man, for example, right? They try to that everyone should fit in that standard, right? So kind of, you know, and they try to like say, oh, this is against our values, right? Kind of, what is it, right? So it's definitely, no one can define that, right? Yeah, or like then people try to give advice to other people, you know, they judge other people based on their own belief, you know, thinking they know best, right? And that can be on any levels, right? Like one thing that people like, I don't know, like I think most often like moms, young moms love giving advice to others and they think they know or like more experienced moms, they like giving advice to other moms saying, oh, you have to do this and that, right? Yeah, when you give kind of advice and thinking like everyone should act the same way. This is called cultural imposition. Yeah, I think we will finish it here. here, I want you, I sent you this. So here's an article about the differences between stereotypes and prejudice. And then I want you to think about stereotypes and prejudice you think you have about different cultures, about other cultures, big or small cultures, right? So that's mainly thing. So I want you to just to think about it, observe the whole week, right? So observe how other people are, what are they saying, how are they acting, whether you can spot any stereotypes or prejudices they are showing. Any movies you may watch, right? So there are lots of kind of stereotypes usually or prejudice, right, that you can see in the movies, right? Any questions? Yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah. So what do you think today? What you learned today? Do you think you have certain prejudice against other people?
Yes.
Can you share any?
One minute. I've taken photo and I would like to tell about it.
I think I have some sellers in our bazaars. They are all liars.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Yes, that all sellers are liars, cheaters, right? They cheat. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't believe in them. Just they just try to make you to just buy their goods.
Right. Yes. Yes, that's right. So yeah, this is kind of stereotype, right? That all of them like that, right? But
Yeah.
when you have kind of attitude, negative attitudes based on that, that is prejudice, right? So like if you kind of start talking to them as if they are cheaters, right? So then this would be how you're demonstrating your prejudice, right? Yes. One thing is good to
I
know.
just have a feeling, you know.
Yeah, that's good. It's good, as I said, it's good when you know that, right? Kind of stereotype saying, therefore to avoid that, we usually say you have to use the phrases like tend to, seem to, most of them, majority of them, right?
Most.
Not kind of generalizing, saying all of them are cheaters, right? But most of them tend to cheat, right? Most of them seem to cheat, right? So this is the correct way of talking, you know, about stereotypes. You know, it changes the perspective, right? When you say like all of them are cheaters, and I think most of them tend to, right? Ko'pchiligi, man o'zbek tilida gapiradigan bo'lsak, ko'pchiligi masalan o'xshaydi, shunaqa tuyuladi. So shunday gaplar bu nima deydi, stereotiplarning hammaga ham taalluqli emasligini ko'rsatadi. Sizlarning munosabatinglarni ko'rsatadi.
Yeah, good point. Yes. Yeah, just I overgeneralized. Yes, this one.
Exactly. Yes. So when you that's the danger, right? When people overgeneralize, and the danger is when they have a prejudice attitude towards them, right? So they're like saying, oh, all of them like that, so then I will talk to them like that. They are there like that, right? So for example, or I will treat them as if they are already liars, right? So even if they haven't done anything to you, right? So yeah, so you're acting towards them based on what you kind of know about them. But when you know about it as a stereotype is okay, right? Because, you know, for example, a foreigner comes and then you say, oh, you know, like many sellers, they tend to cheat, right? So therefore be careful, right? So that's good, right? So in that sense, it's okay, it's good, right? It helps them, right? These stereotypes help you to kind of, you know, then how to treat them, right? But as I said, so you have to be careful that it doesn't turn into prejudice, right? So that you don't generalize it and you don't kind of form attitude towards them, you know, thinking like, you know, like saying, oh no, I will never, I don't want my son marry someone who works in a, I don't know, market, is a seller, right? For example, because they are all cheaters, right? So like having, that's a prejudice, right? When you say like, I don't want to deal with them because they are liars, right? Any other thoughts, any comments, questions?
It's okay to having cultural imposition.
What do you think?
For example, I have this perspective because when I talk with other people, I want that the person should be well educated, not well educated. It isn't about just study. Just have to think and because of
that's the thing, right? That's the thing is who knows what is the truth, right? Who knows what is right, what is wrong, right? For example, yeah, many people like saying, oh, like women should be like, oh yeah, they now, like some people think like, oh no, they should stay at home, right? They have to learn how to cook well, right? Or other cultures, subcultures think, no, they have to be educated, they have to work, right? But in fact, there is no wrong or right answers, right? It's, you don't have to impose your belief on others, right? People are different, right? It's perfect for them, that's great, right? Just a few days ago, I read from a book of our Shaykh, rest in peace. And there was one example saying, like, imagine on a boat, there are people, you know, university students, you know, who studied like, you know, different subjects, and there is a boatman who is in his 40s, he's not educated, you know, and this university, these young people, they start questioning him, saying, do you know about like math? And he knows, like, what is it? Is it the name of a person? Like, say, and they laugh at him, you know, he doesn't know even what is math, for example. Then they say like, oh, you should know at least about it in geography. And he said, what is it? Is it the name of a place? What is it? Like, you know, so he doesn't know all the things that they are mentioning, you know, what is geography, literature, and things like that, you know. And they are kind of mocking him, right, for not knowing these things. And then like he says, okay, do you know how to swim? You know, if there's something happens to this boat and there's a shipwreck, right? Do you know how to swim? And these guys say, no, I don't know how to swim, right? Like, if you're like, you may know many different things, right? But in that particular situation, their life depends on whether they can swim or not, right? So it might be, you know, who knows what is right and what is wrong, right? So therefore, it's really, people have to be careful with, you know, trying to being aware of their own kind of, you know, not imposing on others, right? So yeah, that's truly the same happened in Canada and North America and the United States, right? When the Europeans came here, they saw these indigenous people and they said, oh, they are so uneducated, you know, they don't know anything, you know. They started educating them forcefully. They started teaching them English or French, you know, they started teaching them religion and things like that. But that broke their identity. Although they had their own culture and it was a rich culture formed for many centuries, you know, they had their own traditions, they had their own beliefs, you know, they had their own knowledge, you know, how to heal people, for example, you know, but you know, they had this cultural imposition saying, you know, everyone should be like, you know, the European way of education is the best, for example, right? Or the same that I read many years ago, there was one scholar, I think, I don't remember, from Iran or some Middle East, and he was saying like, I remember saying like, you know, in Europe when I talk to someone like, and he said like, oh, do you know, like, for example, Mozart, Bach, you know, all these European composers, and when I say no, and then like he treats me as I'm, you know, ignorant person, right? But then I say like, do you know, like, for example, Rudaki, you know, all these, you know, from Eastern countries, you know, they don't kind of regard these as being educated, right? So they kind of disregard that, thinking only, you know, the right, you have to read only European writers, European composers, right, musicians, etc., right? This is also cultural imposition. And the same happening nowadays within this globalization, right? So when people watch only American movies, right, or Turkish soap operas, right, or you know, the European music, right? So yeah, that has the kind of, it's also a form of cultural imposition. Anyone wants to say anything? Yeah, who wanted to say something? Yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we have to try to recognize, whether we think we have prejudices and whether we want to impose our culture on others, right? So, because nobody knows what is right or what is wrong. Actually, there are no right or wrong answers, right? It concerns culture. It seems something very strange to us, right, when other people act differently, right? But there might be reasons why they are doing that, right? So, and yeah, and you don't know, you are not in their kind of place, right? So you don't know what they didn't undergo, what they are undergoing, right? So therefore you cannot kind of judge them, right? And you cannot teach them what is right or what is wrong. That's, I think, yeah, that's really great question. That's a thing for us, a great reminder for us all. Right. Great, thank you so much for today. Yeah, enjoy your week and have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.